Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So they are back with the first video of patch 5.3, the arcane patch, and we're here with a Lucian supplementary guide. Now, I don't really think this is going to be Lucian's best build. I'm not too sure yet, but we do have two of the quote-unquote new items. I mean, they say it's new, but we all know it's literally just a tweaked version of like STORMRAIZER and like CLEAVER. Same thing for Zeke's Convergence and what was the last one? The Awakened Soul Stealer. But yeah, so basically just changed the name from STORMRAIZER to Hextech STORMRAIZER and it's a new item. But yeah, okay, so let's get straight into the changes and the build. So of course the main part we want to discuss is STORMRAIZER and Black Cleaver. So STORMRAIZER, the main change that it got is basically two things. Firstly, if we see here, the price is now 3,000. It used to be 3,100. And the main kind of draw of STORMRAIZER is STORMRAIZER is always going to be a first item. You're never going to really build STORMRAIZER as like a third item or second item, things like that. So the main kind of draw of STORMRAIZER is it's only 3,000 now, right? 100 gold less than what it was. So if you compare that to something like a Bloodthirster, which is 3,300, the main kind of draw of this is you get a earlier power spike. Like, even if you're behind, for example, let's say you have died like twice in lane, right? Maybe the enemy gets a Bloodthirster and you get STORMRAIZER like just about the same time because it's cheaper. And also, of course, STORMRAIZER is a decent item. Like you get AD, you get crit, you get a little bit of attack speed. You also, of course, get the Energized passive, which does a little bit of bonus magic damage, a little bit of burst. But the new change is you get movement speed as well. So you're not only going to slow the target you hit, but you're also going to get movement speed. So this basically means that whoever you hit with the STORMRAIZER is going to get run down by you. Or if not, you're going to run away from them if they're the ones chasing you. So that's a pretty big, actually pretty big change, because, you know, slowing down their speed, giving yourself more speed. It's a little bit like the phase rush kind of concept, where movement speed is kind of a stat that's a little bit difficult for most players to use, because it's not really very visible, which is why like something like the Cloud Drake was removed from the game, because it wasn't very visible. Like the effects of it isn't visible. Like you might actually survive or get a kill just because of that extra 60 movement speed, but you normally don't really notice it. So we're gonna try to point it out in the game if possible. We're gonna try to notice it and try to point it out if we can. But yeah. So STORMRAIZER does that. We have Gluttonous Grease, of course. And since we already have the STORMRAIZER, we're going to go into the Magnetic Blaster to synergize the energized items. So this one, of course, gives you even more attack speed and crit. Of course, gives you the Static Shift plus the extra range of the Rapid Fire Cannon, kind of passive. And then here, I've gone for something funky. So basically, I didn't want to build Mole Reminder. So instead what I've done is we have Bloodthirster, which I still think is pretty much the best crit item in the game if your champion can build it. So we have Bloodthirster, huge amount of stats, the extra physical vamp. And then we even go for IE for the increased crit damage. By this time we're 100% crit. And to compensate for the fact that we don't actually have Mole Reminder, we're actually going to use Black Cleaver instead to give us the armor pen. Now, you might be thinking like, you know, is that really a good idea? Well, I would still say Mole Reminder is definitely a better option, because you have permanent like 33% pen by the time you reach like max level. Whereas with the Black Cleaver, you actually have to proc it 4 times and you have to proc it on one enemy. So basically, this Black Cleaver is only going to really work against the enemy you're attacking. So for example, if I'm focusing the enemy ADC, the percent armor pen is only really going to apply onto the ADC. It's not going to apply onto other champions. However, like for example, if you hit like a Q on Lucian, for example, it is going to apply to everybody, for example, but the main stacking is only going to be on the person you're attacking. However, the huge kind of buff to this is that Mole Reminder only really works for yourself. So you only increase your own penetration against them, but Black Cleaver actually increases the penetration of your whole team against them. So that's actually pretty huge. And aside from that, the health, ability haste, and damage from Black Cleaver and movement speed also very useful. So this is going to be the build I'm using in the video. Then we go for Empowerment, of course, because or slash PTA, because it's obviously Lucian's best rune. He procs it really easily with his double autos. Brutal for, you know, the more auto attack damage, since you auto attack a lot. Giant Slayer is generally still the best if we're playing against a tanky team. Only take coup de grace if we're going against full squishy. Bloodline, of course, for the healing, and we have Bone Plating for the laning and the defensive capabilities later on. Flash and Exhaust as usual for the summoner spells. But with all that said, let's jump into the gameplay. Okay, so let's hop into talking about the gameplay itself. Now we're going to focus a little bit less on the actual gameplay slash Lucian aspect of it, but of course we still have to touch on those because it's pretty much unavoidable. We're going to try to focus a little bit more on talking about STORMRAIZER when we get it. And full discretion, we never actually reached the Black Cleaver. We reach 4 items and the game is kind of over, so we never really get to test the Black Cleaver. But even so, I do believe that Black Cleaver is now a pretty viable option for ADCs as a last item, not just as a substitute for Maul Reminder, but also as an addition, right? So imagine if you are just a standard like ADC. Let's say you are Tristana, right? So you hit 4 crit items. Let's say you have your Bloodthirster, you have your Quick Blades, you have your let's say Magnetic Blaster / IE, and you have your Maul Reminder, and you have a last item slot. So let's say there is an instance, of course, where you have a very heavy magic damage enemy team, so you would still go for Maul. But let's say in a separate scenario, you have a pretty heavy AD enemy team, and they are pretty tanky. Let's say they have something like a set in the top lane. Let's say they have an Alistar support, you know, something like that. And let's say their jungler is Amumu, right? Let's say they have like 3 relatively tanky champions. Then this could be a time where getting a Black Cleaver last item, it could be really good because, firstly, as I mentioned, Black Cleaver stats are amazing, right? 400 health on an ADC is a lot. And 20 ability haste, amazing. 40 AD, also pretty amazing. Just really good stats overall. And then you add that onto the Sunder passive, where it only takes 4 hits to actually proc. On any late game ADC, 4 auto attacks on a tank is really simple to do. So you're increasing the damage that tank takes by 24% on top of your Maul Reminder, which is already like 33%. So they're going to be taking like over 50% damage just from you alone. And from your team, it's like you know, another 24%, not another, but 24%. And that is pretty huge. So I definitely do see scenarios where Black Cleaver last item is on the ADC. You know, is going to be a thing. Of course, Black Cleaver is really meant for those top lane like fighters and things like that. But of course, on this channel, we mainly talk about ADCs, being the case that I'm a ADC main. So I just want to kind of contextualize that, you know, to the ADC role. I don't know, some ADCs like Lucian, there might even be a situation where you could go for Black Cleaver early. Like I'm thinking of something like a Terminus, Bork, and Black Cleaver kind of build. If you're against a super duper tanky team, I can definitely see that kind of on-hit build happening. On-hit Lucian builds have kind of cropped up in the past, and it hasn't really cropped up ever since the addition of Terminus, which is pretty interesting because generally when you see Terminus, it's kind of when on-hit builds get popular, but Lucian's one did not, despite the fact that, you know, it has gotten popular over the years, you know, here and there. But I definitely see that as a possibility. And yeah, Black Cleaver in general on ADC is also a big possibility. So we haven't really talked too much about the game yet, and we haven't really actually gotten our STORMRAIZER, but I'm going to talk a little bit about STORMRAIZER. So STORMRAIZER, as we mentioned just now in the intro, basically the cheaper price is a huge plus. It's 300 gold less than getting your Bloodthirster. And why this is a really huge deal is really because Bloodthirster is a pretty expensive item. It's nearly the price of IE, and arguably I think it's better than IE. But yeah, you get the idea. It's a really, really expensive item. And because of that, 300 gold is a kill, right? So let's say if both bot lanes are 0, 0, and 0, right? Nothing has happened, right? If you go for STORMRAIZER, you're going to hit your power spike before the person who is going for Bloodthirster, and this could mean that you have a scenario where you have a completed STORMRAIZER, the enemy bot lane has, let's say, the Vamp Scepter, the Crit Cloak, and the Longsword, but no Bloodthirster, right? And then you guys fight. If you have STORMRAIZER, in theory, you should, of course, there's champion matchups and like ADC and support matchups, but in theory, if you just look at the items, you should have a really significant advantage against the enemy ADC, simply due to the fact that you have one completed item with the extra passive, whereas they only have item components, right? So this could be a really big deal. On the other hand, I think that in terms of overall item, obviously Bloodthirster is going to be superior to STORMRAIZER, because what does STORMRAIZER give you, right? It gives you inferior stats, it gives you no healing, but it does give you, of course, that extra burst damage and that extra slow and movement speed. Whereas Bloodthirster just gives you so much more stats and gives you the healing. Now, I think the healing is really important, and I think that the AD is really important. Of course, this is not to mean that STORMRAIZER should be underestimated, because, by the way, I didn't know what this Hextech Toolkit was when I got it, because it's just like my 3rd game of the season in ranked solo queue. So I was like, what's this? Oh, it's that sweeper thing. So anyway, as I was saying, So basically, it's not to say that STORMRAIZER is bad. The burst damage could still be good. I think that if anybody were to use STORMRAIZER, by the way guys, I didn't actually say this at all in the video, but I do think that Bloodthirster builds are still going to be the way to go for majority of champions. I think that really the champions that might go for STORMRAIZER are champions like Jhin, Lucian, and Caitlyn, maybe. I think the rest of the champions should probably still go for Bloodthirster. So speaking of STORMRAIZER, we finally picked it up. Unfortunately, my team has decided to go contest Dragon while I was resetting. Now, you could say that this was my mistake for resetting when Dragon was up, which it kind of was, but I was pinging them to not contest the Dragon because I saw Xin Zhao on the Dragon, and I thought we could have gone for the Gorilla Turret instead, but my team decided to contest Dragon, and they all end up dying before I was really able to reach the fight, which, again, was kind of my bad as well. So not blaming my team there. But yeah, so now we have a completed STORMRAIZER. Let's see what we can do with it. Here Vayne is trying to recall. Of course, we're not going to allow that. We try to dash forward to auto-attack her, but she does tumble out of the way. Now, the kind of one nice thing about STORMRAIZER that Bloodthirster doesn't have is the attack speed, right? So you get a little bit more attack speed to get more attacks in, but again, AD and attack speed is always kind of a balance, because if you have more AD but lower attack speed, your attacks hit harder but slower, whereas if you have more attack speed but less AD, you hit lighter but faster. So it's kind of just a balance in the grand scheme of things, so it kind of balances out roughly. So here you can see the huge trade we get onto the Vayne. Now I think I could have committed to the dive there, but honestly I haven't actually played STORMRAIZER Lucian in like a year, like ever since like STORMRAIZER was kind of kicked out of meta. Like if you guys remember, there was a time where STORMRAIZER was the best first item for ADCs. Like every ADC was building STORMRAIZER first item, and ever since that era kind of was over, I pretty much never really gone for STORMRAIZER on anybody except I think like Caitlyn does have STORMRAIZER builds. But yeah, I was never really a fan of STORMRAIZER, even when STORMRAIZER was like the best first item. I never really liked STORMRAIZER personally, but hey, you know, that's just me. I got a little bit of bias, but yeah, it's definitely a pretty solid item. But I think that if I knew Lucian STORMRAIZER damage a little bit better, I think I actually could have gone for the dive there, because there was some huge burst. I still have my flash exhaust, and I also still have my other two abilities to finish her off. So I do believe I could have killed her there, but I was a little bit, you know, apprehensive of really carrying out the dive there. So I don't really want to give Vayne, you know, kills, because I have like a huge lead on Vayne, so no real reason to take unnecessary risks. Now here Xin Zhao goes in on me. He does a lot of damage here, and here he pops the ulti, so I can't really go in into the ulti because I can't actually damage him. Here I try to actually time the ulti expiring and ult him, but it doesn't actually work out, and basically he ends up making us look a little bit stupid. But basically I can't just step in to his zone because he's gonna kill me, because obviously ADCs never want to go melee range against like a melee champion. I even flash away here because I know he does a lot of damage. He has a completed Triforce, and he has like almost 8k gold. He's like 1k gold lead over me, and he's incredibly fed. So I'm not even gonna take that chance. I'm just gonna flash away. If he manages to engage onto me, I am in deep trouble. So we're not going to allow that to happen. So yeah, this game a little bit of unfortunate events there. We couldn't really join the dragon fight. You know, we couldn't really help against the Xin Zhao because of the fact that he was in his ulti. And yeah. So now we're of course gonna try to build towards the magnetic blaster. But in the meanwhile, we're just trying to find like places to farm. You can see Zed is about to die again right as he just respawned. Now I saw Xin Zhao there for a second, so I can't really step up to the wave. I'm kind of just waiting here for Vayne to actually push in. Now, there's no real objectives on the map now, but for some reason my team seems to be trying to start a fight in the top lane, which I'm not quite sure why. Vayne takes the Scorpion. I'm assuming that she's recalling at where the Scorpion is. Now, if she isn't, we can definitely 1v1 her, right? So we spot another wave. We're just going to push it out right here, because we are going to be very close to getting our blaster already. We're going to actually back and get the blaster. Now, I could Hex Gate to help my team here, but honestly, I don't know why we're fighting over nothing. Like, Dragon is still 30 seconds away. If we kill someone now, they're going to respawn when Dragon comes up. So anyways, my team is heavily coming to the fight, and so is the enemy team. So I'm actually running straight towards the fight, because I obviously should be able to contribute just based on the fact that the fight's still ongoing. So here I'm dashing in. I'm trying to go for the Alistar, who's 1 HP. I exhaust the Xin Zhao. We kill the Alistar. Now Xin Zhao is in the ulti. I'm just gonna ult down the Vayne, who is just chasing after me. And we do get the kill over there. Now we're gonna go onto the wave. We're gonna get this huge wave at the same time using our lifesteal from our Legend Bloodline to kind of get a little bit of HP back. As well as, of course, our Gluttonous Greaves. Now here the next plant is about to spawn. I'm just waiting here. I hit the plant. I get basically almost back to full health. And now the enemy team is doing the dragon. Here, unfortunately, Kayn chooses to commit to the Jax. Now, if he chose to commit to the dragon, I will go into the pit and fight with him. But since he's committing to the Jax, I'm going to commit to the Jax as well, because no reason for me to commit to the pit, because I can't steal the dragon without a smite anyways. Yasuo is in trouble. Alistar has to come to save him, and does actually do so successfully. Xin Zhao re-enters the fight, pops the ulti so I can't hit him. I'm going to hit the Alistar, who is in his Unbreakable Will. But we are going to be able to slowly auto-attack him down as a team because he doesn't have flash. And we're able to take him down eventually. So now, again, not very much to do here. Objective fight is now over. We're just trying to push in mid a little bit, but we don't really have vision of the enemy team, so we're, of course, a little bit cautious. Zed gets off a decent trade against Yasuo. He has Eclipse for some reason. But yeah, interesting build from Zed. So now we're not going to try to contest the getting the mid lane farm with Zed. So instead we're just going to head over to bot lane where no one is actually taking farm. Now this is kind of the problem, right? Nobody wants to let me have the mid lane farm. So I have to constantly go side lane. And if the ADC is always on side lane, it's really hard for the ADC to join fights. So you can't exactly blame me for not being in the fight, because like look at what happened here. They all basically just died in the fight right there. And why did they die? Because they just randomly started a fight in the mid lane, and I wasn't there to really help them. Now if I was there, they still probably could have or would have died, but my point is that lane assignments in Wall Rift are really important, and it's important for the ADC and support to go mid lane after the mid game starts. Like after towers start falling, it's important for the ADC and support to go mid lane. So like a lot of mid laners think that they should be mid lane the whole game, but this is simply not true, because what needs to happen is the mid laners need to go to the side lane. Normally it's the ADC's lane, and the ADC and support needs to go mid, so that the two-man unit of the ADC and support can rotate to the objectives, and can rotate to fights more easily because you're two people instead of one. And if the enemy team does this but your team doesn't, then you're always going to be at a laning disadvantage when you're fighting as one mid laner against the enemy bot lane. And also, of course, if you're rotating, you have lesser numbers. So anyways, enough about that mini rant about mid laners and rotating. By the way, Zed's just straight up just going mid lane again. But yeah, here we pick up our Bloodthirster, which I think is a really huge pickup. Fight starts in the mid lane, but I'm in the vicinity this time. Xin Zhao thinks of joining, but he decides against it. Alistar is running away with his Unbreakable Will. We don't quite have the damage to finish him off. We know Xin Zhao's in that bush, so we're all stacking up together to go and fight him. Seraphine goes in very bravely by herself at first. I take out the Alistar. I'm now going to go for the Xin Zhao. Kayn picks up the shutdown on the Xin Zhao. And here I'm pinging for Baron because we just killed the enemy support and the enemy jungler. I don't know why we're doing this, but yeah, we basically die. I really don't know what's going on here. They basically get bloodthirsty, and I'm gonna have to turn to help them. And now Vayne is on me, and Vayne actually kills me. Unfortunately, I think I actually made a little bit of a mistake there. I think instead of actually running there, I should have actually just stood still and auto attack, because I had the lifesteal from the Bloodthirster, and I think that I would have actually maybe survived and killed her if I just stood still and auto attack instead of running away, and she got like 1 or 2 free auto attacks onto me as I was trying to run away. So I think I made a mistake there in terms of the micro. But yeah, I think my team is the one that really made the big mistake, because they made a big mistake on macro where I should never have been in a position where I was fighting Vayne in the first place. We killed the enemy support, we killed the enemy jungle, the enemy mid lane is already dead. So only Vayne and Jax are left. So it's literally a free Baron, but we don't take it. And especially in this new patch, the new Baron is really strong because of the fact that when someone starts riding the T-Hex, all the minion waves get Baron buff, and all the minion waves getting Baron buff is just insane. So as a result, we have no Baron now, and we all died, and I gave over a shutdown, and that's just no good. So here the final dragon before Elder is coming up. The enemy team is on Soul Point, about to get the Ocean Soul if they get this dragon. And the fight breaks out early, so Fiora goes in like a 1v4, and here we're in a 3v1 against the Jax. So here we kill the Jax, they kill the Fiora. Now I'm just cutting away huge Seraphine out onto 4. I kite away, I get the double kill. Zed is now going in. Vayne is really low. I'm coming in from behind, killing the Vayne. I pick up a double here. And I'm kiting away from Alistar and Yasuo. Again, focusing the Yasuo first. We get him. Now Alistar has nowhere to run. We get rid of him as well. And we actually pick up a quadra kill here, which is pretty insane. Not sure how the Xin Zhao died, but I guess he died before we were really able to touch him. So no Penta for me there. But yeah, we can see that with this build, we do deal a really insane amount of damage. This time I'm pinging for Baron. And this time, thankfully, the Kane's following me. Now the Seraphine, though, doesn't get the message. Goes top lane to farm instead. And yeah, I don't know. Seraphine's build is really weird as well. She has Fimbulwinter, which I'm not too sure about that one. And she has no, or rather, she does not know, but she has sold her support item. She had it just now, but she sold it now, which doesn't really make sense, because your support item is actually really good until you run out of item slots for other items. So I don't know about that one. So here I'm 4 items, 100% crit. On my build. Now, I need someone else to take up the T-Hex because it's never a good idea for your damage dealers to be the one in the dinosaur. You want your, like, maybe your top laner or your jungler in there. In this case, our top laner is super fed, so we really want our jungler to be in there. Thankfully, he does go and take the T-Hex. So now here, we're just harassing the Yasuo a little bit. You can see we're dealing a lot of damage to him. Alistar comes over, knocks me away. Doesn't really matter here. Yasuo for some reason ults in and just basically like seals his fate, because I don't know why you would ult in there when you're not ulting me. You're ulting the Seraphine, so that means I'm gonna free hit on you while you're CCing yourself in your ult basically. So here I get a double. I'm still thinking of getting that Penta. So here I'm trying to get the kill onto the Vayne. I E-flash forward, but unfortunately Fiora kills her already. Doesn't really matter though, because the game is obviously about to end at this point unless something egregious happens. But here we take the tower, we take the Jax, Xin Zhao, nothing he can really do about it, and we have Baron minions barreling in, and we're gonna finish off the game right here. So you can see actually the Stormraizer build is pretty decent. As I said, I still think that bot will still be the way to go, but we'll have to see how the patch shakes out. So thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.